Well, once again, a little bit about the water footprint experience and an introduction for those of you who were not in the first presentation. The presentation and the case studies that I'm going to show you are working with the ISO 14046 water footprint standard. Some of the work that led to us writing in ISO the water footprint standard was the importance of water. There's a human right to water and sanitation. That was the United Nations General Assembly. Also, there's a lot of work in this water and energy nexus done through United Nations Environmental Program. And the Secretariat of United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, is always stating the fact that we need to look at better management and efficient management of freshwater resources and energy in order to talk about sustainable development. So this is a very important nexus. And of course, and this is something that we always feel, I hope you're feeling it, climate change. Is there anything that you can think of at climate change in South Africa? Nothing. Everything is the same. It rains the same as like 20 years ago? No. So where? Climate change is closely related to water. And so this is a nexus also very important. So whenever people at the policy level were looking at carbon, of course, right up behind it came water, because they are so closely related, and it was important to look not only at carbon, but also at the water issues, and to be able to quantify carbon footprints and also water footprints. So there are many, and we saw that in the previous session, there are many activities from industry where there's no getaway. The footprint is around us everywhere. That's the nickname for these environmental impact indicators. Footprints makes a very good sense of, you know, you're somehow marking the environment, and you need to measure it, and you need to think about it. So many companies now, this is a study also done by Ernst & Young, and many companies are actually setting goals for reducing not only the carbon but also the water footprint. So it's an important goal, and it's an important thing to measure, to quantify, and to report it. And this is basically why we wrote a standard. Why do we want to assess the water footprint? First of all, and we saw it, water scarcity is one of the most important problems. We are in South Africa, I'm from Mexico. That is an issue in our countries. There's an increasing population, an increasing need of goods and services that use water, so that's also something that we need to take into account. Sustainability has become a key marketing factor, and then there's a risk if we don't do something, because there are regulations, the reputation of your brand is also important. So it's not just being green, it's that you need to do it, and you need to be efficient by measuring water footprint. In the previous presentation, I showed you one picture. That was the beginning of the standard. We had a working group of 80 people sitting for 5 years trying to come up with a consensual document that would tell people how to quantify and how to provide the number in a framework of a water footprint. This one right here is okay, we did it, we made it. After all the politics and all the problems around, some countries really voting against having a water footprint standard. So this is last year. In 2014 in Panama, so we were very happy because we made it. We were able to now say we have an international standard. It is published. There was a lot of work. Like I said, people from all different continents with all different types of interests, companies, governments, academics, scientists trying to defend their point of view from the science standpoint, and also organizations saying, you know, this is too difficult, I cannot do it. We were all over the world. Trying to sit down with these 80 people and experts and saying, okay, what are we going to do and how to write a standard? So we were able to deliver a consensual international standard on water footprinting. You can find it in your standards body, SABS. They were actually very active also in our group. And you can also download a lot of information from the ISO website. There are briefing notes that tell you how you can use the standard. So what is, according to the ISO 14046, a water footprint standard? I'm sorry, a water footprint. So it is a metric, it is a number that quantifies the impacts on water of a product, a process, or an organization, even at a country level. So it's very powerful. ISO provides a framework, but the science is evolving all the time. From 2009 to 2014, we had more scientists coming up with problems that we needed to assess, with factors that we needed to consider. And when we were doing that, our working group within the ISO always partnered with United Nations Environmental Program to sort of try to get the science and the scientists sit together and provide us with the numbers we needed, because there were many things, and there are still many things that need to be considered and need to be solved. And water is a dynamic system, it's very complex. So coming up with a solution that fits everyone was complicated. So there are many publications that you can download regarding the water footprint and how this has been evolving since 2005. And same as carbon footprint, they have this body, international body, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which delivers the science and the consensus on how to quantify the carbon footprint. We were able to work together with this United Nations Environmental Program initiative, which is called the Water Use in LCA. The water footprint standard is like the little sister of the ISO 14040 standard on life cycle assessment. So this is why the group originally was called Water Use in LCA. Nickname for LCA results is footprints. So this is why this is the body of scientists that are doing the work for us to provide some consensus on how to basically come up with indicators covering stress, covering scarcity, covering availability, and covering some of the degradation models that are being used within the framework of the standards. So this working group has been working over the years, and I have to tell you what I'm going to present to you. It was a study we did like 4 years ago in Mexico, and science has evolved so fast that now we have a consensual project, an indicator project right there, where 5 of the most important scientists sat down and said, okay, we're going to get together, we're going to not complicate things, and we're going to provide the world with a consensual indicator. So now it's out. This is like very recent. It was published last month. It's a great achievement. So same as IPCC, now you can go to this group and then you can follow up and they will be delivering the science for us. And this is very important because then you don't have 5, 6 methods and then you don't have this fight of academics, and then you can use it within your organizations with a little bit more confidence than, I don't know if this is the one indicator or the one method to use. So this was a great accomplishment, and as I mentioned, we did it together with the ISO work. Now I'm going to walk you through what is the framework of quantifying a water footprint. So basically what we ask first is what amount of water is used and what is discharged. And then it's a water balance, and you have to do that not only in your factory or in the 4 walls of your company, you have to do it along the value chain. So you have to ask that to your suppliers, you have to ask that about your electricity generation systems, and you have to do the balance everywhere. For the standard, the main concept is water consumption. That water that you're not returning to the system, which is being evaporated or is being incorporated in the product, that is not going to return to the system anymore. So that is where we look at when we are doing this water balance that you see right here. So I know this is a challenging time after lunch. So I'm gonna show you an example of a water footprint of beer we did in Mexico. So after we do that, we look at availability, where the water where are the sources of water, and then we have these indexes that I was telling you about, the factors that we use in order to assess the impacts on availability, and we also have degradation impacts. So those are the potential environmental impacts that, according to methodology, then would provide us the number or the metric that the standard looks at. After that, what we want to do is that corporations, countries, even people can have that number and do something about it. So they want to minimize their water footprint. So this is beer. Yeah, after lunch it sounds like nice, but we don't have beer in front of us. So what we did was, of course, ask the companies in Mexico to do this water balance. We had 25 companies participating in this study. We got data from 1994 to 2009, which is important because all the agricultural information has variations according to the monthly conditions for different crops. We included, as I said, this is life cycle, so we have all the supply chain. We included the packaging materials. The presentation is for the 500 milliliters, which was the most sold in Mexico. It is, I think, still the most sold in Mexico. We had glass bottle, and then we also had aluminum cans. Disposal scenarios were also considered. We have aluminum recycling, we have glass recycling, and of course the boxes to carry those to the different shops is also considered. Agricultural data was for Mexico, and we also considered the electricity generation because you don't want to drink beer, which is just not cold and nice for the hot weather in Mexico, so you need to use those. Okay, so the first part is, okay, how much water you use in each of these life cycle stages. So you can see that growing the crops is the one place where we are doing more in terms of water. We are using a lot of water there. Of course, the production, and then a little bit in the use and disposal, because you wash the bottles or you do some sort of use of water when you are doing the recycling activity. So 36% volume of water use is due to crops, 16% is due to packaging, and 98% is groundwater. So we need to ask about the source, because remember, we care about availability. So this gives us good information. We are, like I said, we did this project under certain conditions where most of our breweries are located or were located in scarce areas. And there's this also issue on the water tax. So you can see that to produce 1 liter of beer, we in Mexico are using 3.8. We are consuming 3.8 liters of water, while in other countries it's like, you know, double. So yeah, by doing this and quantifying this, you can become very efficient, and it's important to have these indicators. It's also important to show you that that was not the reality at the very beginning. 1994, sorry. Okay, in 1994, it was 6 liters of water per liter of beer, and then slowly, by doing this type of studies and quantifications, then companies have become very efficient within the 4 walls of the company. But then with this life cycle perspective and doing the water footprint, then it was also important to work with the farmers and to be able to know where you were extracting the water from, the sources, and to be able to know also what kind of impacts on degradability you were creating. So that was the next part of our study, where you could see that we have different regions in Mexico, and normal statistics would say, okay, this is the amount of water that is available per person per year in an area. But of course, if you use the methodology of water footprint, then you can see that, yeah, even if statistics say there's water, there's not enough water, even in some regions, and that is important to consider. So that is the point we make with the standard. Take this information and consider where you are extracting the water from. So by doing that, yeah, you use average in the different life cycle stages of beer production, 20 liters of water per liter of beer, but you are actually impacting the availability and you're also polluting water in this range. 71 liters of water are being somehow polluted and somehow used and not returned to the system when you are producing 1 liter of beer. So this is what the information of a water footprint tells you. It tells you where you have to look at and what you can do with this information. It's a lot. So you don't just do something in your factory, but you work with the farmers. You're able to know what type of pollutants are there and what type of treatment you can do so that you can lower the water footprint. And you can also know that there are different stages where you can make improvements. So that was really briefly the different impacts that we were able to assess. And there's another step of the water footprint standard, which you can use at the level of countries. And this is another, sorry for the Spanish, but maybe, yeah, good time for you to learn a little bit of it. Well, this is something that we did at the country level. And one thing that was very important to help our government to look at was to have this view of, okay, it's not only the amount of water that's there, but how it is available. Is it polluted? Is it in a scarce area? So you have, for example, things like this. You have population, you have the percentage of average renewable water, fresh water, and then you have the water footprint, which is the green that you see here. And you could see, for example, the last region is the region of Mexico City, which was like 100 million people living there. So 20% of population, more or less, must cover their water needs with 0.76% of the fresh water in Mexico. So those are the type of information that you can get when you are quantifying the water footprint, and these people are responsible of 10% of the water footprint of the country. So you can get into providing policymakers with good information about not only how much water, but what type of impacts considering availability and degradation. So, well, this is another project that I want to show you, and it's relevant because it is funded by the Swiss Cooperation Agency or Development Agency, and it has been working since we started the ISO 14046 process. They wanted to become a living pilot. So with Swiss funds, they were working in different countries in Latin America, Peru, Colombia, Chile, and then they are working now in Vietnam. And the plans for the Swiss government is to come over and replicate the project in South Africa. So I think it's also good and important opportunity to work with them and to know what they have accomplished in the different countries. In Vietnam, for example, they have worked with coffee, and they've been able to gather data from different plantations and to provide information about availability and degradation of and the water footprint of coffee, so that they can improve the way they are operating, but also do some sort of improvements along the value chain. In Peru, for example, you can see down here, they have been working with Nestle and Duke Energy, which is the electricity company in Peru, and also some agricultural companies. In Chile, they have worked with Clariant and some retailers also, and Nestle, who's been part of the project since the very beginning, of course, a Swiss company. And then in Colombia, they were also working with the cement company, Argos, some of the companies that are related to the food industry, and with Nestle, as you can see up here. So there's a very, very good documentation of the project, most of it in Spanish, but there's also material in English that you can go and check how this has been done throughout 4 years already of implementation. And you can even look at the numbers. And the numbers, like I said before in the other session, you got to be very careful because the water footprint will vary year per year. You don't have like a number that will last there for many years, like it can be calculated for a carbon footprint. This was the water footprint calculations for powdered milk produced in Colombia for Nestle. This is the type of information you get, very detailed information about the type of water that you're using and where in your value chain you're using that. You're also able to identify hotspots in different impacts, and also it can, the methodology can even allow you to see, okay, my water consumption might create some problems, human health, ecosystems quality. So it allows you to look at the places where you have to make improvements along the value chain. And sometimes it's not in your factory, it's not in your company, but mostly for this type of products is what you have to do at the agricultural level. So yeah, Nestle has been quantifying the water footprint in all these different places and all over their different companies in the world, and they now have numbers that can provide them information to make improvements and minimize the water footprint. Another company, and I'm talking about companies that are also clients of mine, so that I'm allowed to show you this information and it's also publicly available, is Danone. They've actually developed a very powerful Excel tool that is free for anyone to download, and they can use if you have products that are similar. You only need to sort of adapt it to the conditions of this last consensual indicator project that I showed you, because it's, like I said, it's just so new that the tool is using some other factors that were delivered in 2010. So yeah, the idea for all the companies is that water footprint is not something that will happen, it's happening. They are quantifying it, even though some of them are quiet. You can work it at a sectoral level, like I showed you for the beer companies in Mexico. It is just good practice. You know, the number of information you need is about asking and keeping records and bookkeeping. That's what you need, because it's not so difficult once the science is there and then you learn it. So yeah, the idea is that with the standard providing you a common framework, with the scientists working together, you can actually quantify a footprint that will give you a scientific and objective way of providing a metric that's telling you how your impacts on water are at product level, organization, and as I mentioned, at the country level. It will give you objective information that is important. I don't know, 15 years ago, people wouldn't even know how much it hurt the environment, if it was good or bad, if it was friendly or not. So it's helpful to have objective numbers. We are used to numbers. It allows you to prepare for the future risks of water use. We need to. I mean, there's no way around it. Identify ways to reduce the environmental impacts, considering pollution and the availability of water in different regions, and also to improve efficiency, like there's examples of that at the company level, and share knowledge and best practice with industry and government. This is about sharing, and I've heard many times companies saying, okay, this is my competition, but I'd rather work together at a sector level and get all these agreements and be able to measure everything the same way, so that out there in the market we are evaluated in a fair way from the side of consumers. So we need to meet those customer expectations and increase our environmental responsibility, and this is what we were aiming at when we were writing the ISO 14046. And just to say goodbye, I was asked to talk about water footprint, but I think water is important, same as air, not only carbon, because there are other pollutants to air, and there's also pollution to soil. So it really depends where you are. Maybe you are in Canada and water is not an issue, or maybe it is, but not so much as other problems. So just to leave you with this, cerveza, I told you I was going to be teaching you Spanish, is beer, okay? So what would you choose if you were a customer at a place and you would have option A and option B? One with a higher carbon footprint and another one with a higher water footprint. Difficult choice. So you got to look at all the different environmental impacts. Thank you very much.